Welcome back to the It's Bigger Than Me podcast. I'm your host, Molly Trotter Gomez. I am so excited for our guest here today, Marissa. I am so excited to have you on the show. Gosh, I mean, there are so many things that we can dive into here today, and I'm very excited to dive into a topic that is so pressing. Ambition needs rest. And you might be thinking, what does that even mean? Like, that doesn't even make sense. That's the point, and we're going to dive into that. But Marissa, I'm very excited to have you on the show. Marissa is just an amazing woman. When I saw her on social media, I immediately reached out to her and we just had a real conversation right off the bat of like, hey,
Yeah.
who are you? What are you doing? What are you about? But we instantly, when we came together and saw what each other's hearts were about, we just knew like this was an amazing kingdom connection. And I said, I
Mhm.
have to have you on my show. And I'm very excited to dive into the topic today and for you to get to know Marissa just a little bit more. But before we do, please tell us a little bit about who you are so the folks at home can learn more about you.
Sure. Thanks, Molly, for having me. You are amazing, and I've loved getting to know you the little bit we have over the last few months. Um, my name's Marissa McCrory. I have been married for 19 years. I love that part of my life. It's a big, important part of my life. I have two kids, and we currently live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I've been in ministry, gosh, for like, I think all my life, honestly, but in terms of actually walking that out, for about 12 years inside of church. I have a psychology background, so I love people. I love trying to understand why they are the way they are, and I believe that's been built into me. And part of what I feel I'm called to do is help them live healthy in their spirit, soul, and body. So for a long time, I focused on the soul, which is your mind, will, and emotions. Recently, God opened doors for me to walk into the holistic health space. So now I'm utilizing all three parts inside of helping women really get healthy physically, and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. So we use the word of God towards holistic health, wellness, and functional medicine. And so while we do that, we actually address mindsets. Even the topic we're going to talk about today is very top of mind for a lot of the clients I work with. So I'm super excited to dive in.
Yes, yes. And, whenever we think of health, we're like, okay, we need to eat well, we need exercise, we need to drink water. But let's talk about maybe one that might be a little bit more taboo for some people, which is rest.
Mhm.
A lot of people are like, yeah, 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 okay. But if you don't get enough rest and the right kind of rest, like truly rest, there's a lot of people who are
Mhm.
sleeping, but they're not actually restful because they're not
Right.
like, you fill in the blank. There's a lot of, I used to just like, my mind would be a running tab and a scroll, just
Mhm.
constantly writing things out in my sleep.
Right.
Never had any rest. But you brought up something before we clicked live here today and recorded. Ambition needs rest. So you meet a lot of whether they are ambitious, men and women, or
Mhm.
they're not, but ambition needs rest. I feel like that's something that might be like, wait, what is that? Because rest is something where, the world's like, you'll sleep when you're dead. But God
Yeah.
didn't design us to be that way. Even if we are
No.
ambitious people and we're like, go, 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 you have all these dreams and goals and visions, we still need rest. And in the
Yes.
beginning, I mean, God
Yeah.
gave us a command for rest. So I'm going to stop talking
Mhm.
because I know you have a lot of wisdom on this and I'm ready to listen.
Oh, you're awesome. Um, yeah, like we were designed for it. Our body is diurnal, which means that we have a circadian rhythm. If you go back to like biology class, like we were built to sleep. We're supposed to be awake when it's light. We're supposed to be sleeping when it's dark. And the thing is we now have blue lights with our phone, we have screens, we have electricity. I mean, thank God for electricity. Let's not like go crazy, but it has trained us to go against our actual nature. So sleep is a big part of it. I love that you brought that up because it's actually something I have to train all of my clients to actually prioritize. And it can become skill, actually. And so we talk a lot about sleep, but overall, thinking about our actual schedules, we need to actually prioritize rest. And how do we do that? We say we put boundaries around our work. Like, I know that there are seasons where we're building big things and we might be stretched a little bit out of our norm, but I would like to see people at least come to sort of some sort of like 80-20 ratio in their life where 80% of the time they are living on a certain schedule. And then that gives them the space to stretch in those outlier seasons when they do need to invest more time and maybe sleep a little bit less. But I'm saying that should be a much smaller ratio than what I'm seeing it, because here's the thing, the sleep deficit causes stress on your body. The work in general on a daily basis puts stress on your body. Then you have those extra seasons where you are building something big and it's like a deadline and it's like big and juicy and it's a God dream, but it's still time and energy. So you have to be intentional about your rest in those seasons and figuring out that wrestle with God of like, this is the mentality I see people kind of reflect towards their work, is like they treat themselves like a robot that God is just like pulling the strings on. And so that's even something we get into when we're getting around the mindset of their health. Like, why do you have issues saying no to people? And why do you have issues putting boundaries and times around your actual work time?
Mm.
Are you so important that you can't say no to people? Is your calling more important than your physical needs? No, God doesn't say that. He actually modeled rest. When our first day was the first day God modeled rest. So he created us, and then the next day he rested. He created everything beforehand. So we'd have this beautiful setting to be a part of, something that would be a place for us to experience and experience him with us. And I love that the first thing he models for us as his children is rest. And he made it a command. And so that's interesting to me. Whenever we look at the word, when something is mentioned first, there's great importance on it. And I just think like this hurry and this hustle that we've been living in is leading to lots of burnout and resentment. So that it looks like something's not working. So I think this is part of the answer.
Ah, so powerful. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that portion in scripture where the disciples are in a boat. There's a storm in there and Jesus is sleeping. And they're like, "Why are you sleeping? Like, why are you resting? Like, what are you doing?" He's sleeping in the middle of a storm. He has
Yeah.
so much peace that he's sleeping in the middle of a storm. But many of us are like, "I can't sleep. I don't have time. I have to keep working. I have to keep doing. I have to keep striving." And so, right when you said that, it just instantly popped in my mind. In the middle of a storm, he was sleeping, he was resting. And people are like, "What are you doing? What's going on? What's happening?" Because their limited knowledge didn't understand how can you sleep when we are in danger, right? When he was like, "You're not in
Mm,
danger. Like, I am with you." And so, really thinking of that way, like, even in the midst of your storm right now, even in the midst of this crazy season, like, we get to still rest. And so,
yeah.
it's even, I mean, we could even go down the whole issue of like lordship or something of like, are you giving your circumstances or you're calling lordship over God? And that's why you're not getting the
Mm,
rest that you need. So I would love to know from
yes.
you, Marissa, like, tell me what some of the people that you work with, like, what are some of the biggest hangups, because we should just be like, okay, I'll rest, but we don't. So what are some of the biggest hurdles you have to get people over? Because it should be simple, but we just tend to complicate things.
I see a lot of women with bad boundaries, people pleasing, um, unhealthy relationships, and just not having it modeled for them. Seeing other leaders continue to like burn themselves out. But I'm seeing like with the amount of like, I don't know, Christian speakers and Christian pastors who have recently just fallen and like, okay, what was going on in their life personally that made them feel like they couldn't tell anybody? So like there's also this like disconnection happening that is like something that I don't feel like God intended. And I think part of that mentality is like I have to be producing and I can't be honest about the way I'm feeling because I feel highly called to this big calling and very responsible. And if I tell somebody, like I'll expose it and ruin it. So that's like a whole other topic. I'm not sure how I got on that vein, but it's true. Like that burnout is still happening amongst it, like leaders that seem like they're at the top of their game. But again, like why is all the burnout happening? Because we're seeing it show up in our physical bodies. Inflammation is on the rise, cortisol issues are on the rise, hormonal imbalances are on the rise, gut issues are on the rise. Those all have a root cause. They have many things that play into it. But when we look at the physical, like interconnectivity of our bodies, stress is one of the main root causes of all of those issues. And I just can't help but realize like we're living in a rhythm that does not work when it comes to our faith and the way God designed our bodies. If you just look at it from like a science perspective, going back to the circadian rhythm, like God made rest as part of our life. And we can't seem to like get the idea that we can live in that rhythm even when we're awake. So it's interesting to me.
Come on. That is so good. Especially from when we talked about earlier, ambition needs rest. Myself being a very ambitious person, I was always like, okay, go, 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 hurry up, go, 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 go. And over the years, God's like, hey, we need to slow it down. I'm like, what do you mean? No, we're not slowing down. Keep going. I need
I'm
slow me down to the point where he had to like really stop things that I was working on to capture my
great.
attention of you're going too fast in all these directions. And I need you to slow down because you're missing a lot of things I want you to catch. So it
Mm-hmm.
felt for the longest time almost like I was in quicksand, slowly dying, like, oh my gosh, like I feel like it's just so out of control. When really it's
Yeah.
not. He's just trying to get you to get rid of the busy. And I tell people, I think busy should be
Yep.
a 4-letter curse word. I mean, people use that thing
Same.
all the time. You say busy, I
Same.
tell people, stop cursing at me. I was like, I hate that word. But it's
Exactly.
productivity. If we see, am I busy or am I being productive? Or even the
Mm-hmm.
third one, Lord, am I doing what you're asking me to do? Not just what I think I
Yes.
should do. You are going to operate out of
Yeah.
a place of peace, which also brings rest. So I would love for you to talk about that because I know those two are definitely intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I love what you said about busy. I was just talking about this the other night in my group program. That word I also hate when people use it. I'm like, great, but did you actually accomplish anything? Like, how are things actually going
Correct?
in your life? Like, I think we've used it as like this badge of honor. And I'm like, no, you need to break up with that word because you're probably not being highly effective at home, in your marriage, in your relationships. You're probably actually not being highly effective in your actual call. If you use that word of like busy, like, mm, are you being effective? Are you being actually productive? And are you still taking care, stewarding yourself is how I like to use it.
Yes.
Um, because God gave you a physical body to take care of. And I see a lot of Christians just kind of like poo poo that part of their life or make it an idol to where it's like, I need to strive to be the fittest, most amazing. Like, I never eat out. I never eat seed oils. I never do these things. And it becomes an idol instead of it coming from a place of flow and rest. So, um, yeah, I don't think it's a badge of honor, and we need to be living from that place of rest, knowing that God is the author of our lives. So if you're not constantly like surrendering and connecting with him intimately, and for to really know him is to live in that place of rest, just like that story you told of the boat and the storm. It's like we can be highly effective when we live from that place in our life because we're not stressed, we're not striving, we are peaceful, even when chaos is happening around us, because we're grounded and
Yes.
rooted in the way he thinks and sees things. So we can't do that without stepping away on occasion from our work. We can't do that effectively if we're not taking regular breaks. Like that's daily, that's weekly, that's vacations. I I guarantee you it is not a badge of honor to like say, oh, I don't take vacations. I
Ugh.
just,
I feel
I'm
so
very
bad for
full.
people
I'm
when they
like,
don't. I'm like,
oh,
come on.
like that's like why? I always come back so refreshed. I get so much new creativity when I step away and like reevaluate, okay. And my husband and I do that regularly for our families, for the things that we work on together, for our life. Like there should be regular introspection from an outside perspective to give you fresh perspective on what's working and what's not, you know? So,
Yes, so good. Well, there's a couple things I want to say to that that was so good. And you mentioned surrender, and it reminds me of this quote that I came across recently that hit me so hard. And I know this has so much to do with rest and just every areas of our lives. It says, when you have been married to control for so long, surrender feels like a divorce. That's why it's so hard.
Wow.
When you've
I
been
think I
married
saw
to
you
control
post that.
for so long, when
Yeah.
that hit me, I was like, well, gosh darn,
That's
like, no
so good.
wonder. I'm like, this feels like I'm being ripped apart. Well, that's what divorce does. It rips, it shreds, it destroys. So,
Mm,
yes, it's going to feel like a divorce because we have just been clinging to that for so long.
yeah.
And one of the things you also mentioned was, being able to take rest throughout your day. One of the things I picked up at the beginning of this year was a hobby that has nothing to do with working out or business or growth or anything. Like, find
I
something
love
else that's
it.
unrelated to the point where it's almost like it's so not an income producing activity, which is out of my nature. And you guys might be like, Molly, you're a freak. Yes, I know. I just love being productive. I picked up coloring. So I have a coloring book, I have
Yes.
markers, and I will sit there and color. And it literally has nothing to do with anything. And I even would in the beginning found myself getting frustrated of like, why are we doing this? These colors
Yep.
don't. And I'm trying to be a perfectionist coloring in a coloring book for peace, like and just having peace of mind. And that wasn't the point. The point is pick something that is like when I go to that, it is like brain is off.
Yep.
We're here, we're present, we're like just everything else. It's like my barricade.
Very
Like
good.
I bring my
Very good.
section of like I'm barricading myself, everything else can wait. And it
Yes.
sounds silly, but it's something
No,
that has been so helpful to help me
it's
just relax and just like I need a few minutes to color today. I just do. And most people be like, well, what are you doing that for? I don't need a reason other than
nope.
we're just going to. And so some of
Very
us
good.
we don't need to have reasons. It doesn't need to make sense to other people. But if it
Hmm.
makes sense to you, or if it's just something that you need because you need it, stop trying to find yourself explaining to everybody else because they probably
Yes.
won't get it.
Hmm. Correct. I love that you brought that up. Another topic I just was talking about with a client is the fact that we have lost the art of leisure activities.
Ooh,
Like other generations before us played tennis with friends, and it wasn't like super competitive. It was just fun. They would crochet, they would garden, they would go for walks. Like I feel like we've turned leisure activities into side hustles. Like everybody's got like an Etsy market or like a side hustle thing. I'm like, maybe you just enjoy doing that thing because God wanted you to enjoy it, And it doesn't have to be connected to the thing you actually do for work. It's just a way to actually like detach from work, be present, and enjoy your life. Like, why have we lost the art of doing that? It was funny, I actually mentioned this movie. Like, I'm not promoting it anymore, but it was back in the day when I watched movies like this. But Eat, Pray, Love. And she goes to Italy and she learns this phrase. It's I think it goes dolce far niente, and it's the sweetness of doing nothing.
mm,
And I even talked about how other cultures, other than Americans, have rest and fun built into their daily life. Like they take
yes.
siestas, they take long vacations. And I'm saying, like, I think there's something special about being American. Like that enterprise spirit is really beautiful. But I think we can learn something from our friends in other countries because they have less disease rates, they have more peace. And enjoyment. And I think that God designed us for that, not just to be robots constantly producing, but to have and enjoy our life and have it more abundantly.
So good. Yes, there are so many things we can learn from and people we can learn from because, America isn't the healthiest. So that's for sure. You look at all the stuff that's in our food and the way that we operate, and sure, we can achieve things, but at what cost? The cost is
Exactly.
very high. It can cost our marriage, it can cost our health, it can cost our life because our health is out of control. It can cost a lot of
Mhm.
things. So, Marissa, this is so good. So good. There's so much good meat in here. As we wrap up today, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? And yeah, this is just so juicy.
Um, I guess I would just like to say to anybody that's listening, like if you have partnered with the lie that you are unworthy of rest, I would like you to evaluate where you heard that and if that's really true for you. And go to the Word of God and see what He has to say about rest. I like Chat GPT, rest scriptures in the Bible, like get practical
Yes.
and look at what God has to say about it. Um, Pick a hobby. I like puzzles. I like that you like coloring. I tried pickleball this summer. It was super fun.
Nice.
Like find leisurely activities that also help you just like disconnect, de-stress, rest more, build vacations into your calendar. Like God will provide for you. Start if you're saying, I don't have the money for that, make the decision that it is a priority and watch how God opens the doors. Start with a staycation and at least like leave work to the side and go for 24 hours. Like start somewhere, then start building from there and you'll realize you really like it. And then God will open more doors for more opportunity and financial abilities to do bigger and better vacations, I believe. And I just want every woman out there to know that they are worthy of taking breaks. Like take a lunch break,
Yes.
go play with your kids, like build in margin into your life because there's also a book I love. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Prayer and reflection doesn't happen in hurry. In a jam-packed schedule, that does not happen naturally. So like I would love for you to evaluate like how is your relationship with Jesus and how is the flow of your work life going and your family life going and look at the fruit of not resting and then try resting and see if the fruit changes.
Oh gosh, you just said something that we could go on another hour pod for. Look at the fruit of your life. Yes. I've just had some conversations with some girlfriends of mine that I'm like, look at the fruit of your
Mm,
kids. What everybody else is saying, look at the fruit that you've produced. Focus on
yes,
that. And they like you see a tear. I'm just like, let that be. That speaks volumes. That speaks
it's
volumes.
very good.
So,
Very good.
good.
Thanks, Molly. It was so
Marissa, this
good.
has been amazing. Absolutely
Yes.
amazing. We'll have all of her information below. Connect with her on Instagram, on Facebook, all the places. She is incredible to really just help you reset and just refocus. And this is such a needed conversation when it comes to rest. It's not popular, but it's needed because
Hmm.
everybody at some angle is feeling that burnout. What can I do differently? Well, sometimes we have to, actually, a lot of times we have to slow down to speed up.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
we get to take inventory of where we're really at. So I would love to challenge people today. Find a leisure activity. Do
Come
it at
on.
least once a week and then grow. Something that's not
Yes.
connected to anything because your well-being is worth it. And you don't need to
Hmm.
explain that to anybody else. Anybody that has a problem with that, well, there might be other conversations that need to be had. But
Yeah.
your well-being is worth it. So Marissa, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Molly. It was such a good time, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. It means the world to me that you would lean in, listen in, and be able to hear the value that's being shared on this show. Don't forget, if you love this episode, rate the show, leave me a review, be sure to share it with a friend, and don't forget to tag me on social media. I will definitely be giving you a shout out. Also, come say hi, drop in the DMs. I would love to be able to hear what stood out to you the most on the episode and if there's any topics that you would like to hear on the show. We'll see you next time.